traditional engineering genius can be connected with an important innovative spirit.
AI competition. It's not you win, I lose, or I win, you lose. I think kind of coexistence.
Is that it has invested in technologies that are transformative for the world at large.
We're trying to open our market while at the same time we're providing a better space for the corporation.
Half the world's GDP is now sitting in Asia. China is the primary force of that.
Hello and welcome to this special edition of Dialogue, the China Drive, Vast Market, Global Opportunities. As China moves forward with its 15th five-year plan, building a strong domestic market has become a key pillar of its new development journey. From expanding domestic demand and upgrading industries to advancing a high-standard opening up, China is shaping a vast and more dynamic market, one that aims to bring benefits not only to its 1.4 billion people, but also to the world at large.
Guests of this edition are Yves Leterme, former Prime Minister of Belgium, Jelena Grubor-Stefanovic, Director at the Representative Office of the Serbian Chamber of Commerce and Industry in China, Zhou Mi, Senior Research Fellow at the Chinese Academy of International Trade and Economic Cooperation, David Mahone, Executive Chairman of Mahone China Investment, Daryl Guppy, CEO of GuppyTraders.com, Kalinda Brenda, Africa-China Partnership Advisor at Development Reimagined.
Well, as we talked about building a domestic big market or mega market, tell us what's that about and why we are doing that, Domi.
Well, we know that the world is facing so many uncertainties. I think in my understanding that what can we do? We can try to make the better use of what we are able to do. I mean, the market is definitely one of the reasons. Actually, you know, when you are looking back in the previous several decades, mostly the export is one of the main drivers for the economic development, and also investment, another driver. But I mean, we are entering a new era. The new era is trying to make the Chinese modernization. The Chinese modernization do not only happen in the infrastructure, it will also happen in our lives. So we are provide the Chinese people more choices. I think that is the definition of what we can do to improve our sustainability and also provide so many opportunities for our friends.
Mm-hmm. Well, Jelena, let me turn to you. Based in Shanghai, you have been in China for many years. How do you look at the efforts to build a domestic market here in China?
I think they're very important, and we're seeing that the consumption is becoming a bigger part of the GDP. I think it's currently at 54%, and I think that it's maybe not yet at the levels that it is at the West, but we are seeing a significant increase, and it's becoming a bigger part of the GDP. And this is very important also for all the foreign companies here, especially companies coming from Serbia. It has, in the last decade, become the second biggest market that's important for us outside of Europe. And we are really seeing great strides in these efforts to boost consumption and to upgrade the demand here.
Mm-hmm. Mr. Leterme, how do you look at the efforts, to build the domestic market, but the focus is obviously on consumption here?
Well, I think it's the right focus. Already in the 14th five-year plan, there was the issue of the concept of dual circulation. Now it is even increased in terms of policy relevance in the new five-year plan. I think we should lean a little bit back and see the long-term and mid-term normal trends in economic development. So China, in an unprecedented, speedy way, has gone through all kinds of developments from a, let's say, underdeveloped economy very rapidly to, what seems to be in certain domains already almost a mature economy. And so the fact that the domestic consumption was still under the average level, the average part you could expect for a maturing economy, I think was an issue, is still an issue. And so the fact that this is stressed now in the new 5-year plan, I think it's a good thing for the outside world. But I think it's also excellent news for the Chinese citizens. I think there are lots of measures taken now to make the Chinese consumers feel safer about the future, having reasons to invest more of their money in just their daily lives, enjoy life, and enjoy the possibilities, opportunities the Chinese economy and the Chinese society is offering. And of course, we hope also seizing the opportunities that foreign providers of services and goods are offering the Chinese consumers.
Yeah, speak of that, the consumption or the changing landscape of the China market. Earlier, I visited a popular toy shop on Shanghai's Nanjing Road. For those who are familiar with Shanghai, Nanjing Road is a business center, traditional business center in that big city, where a wave of new brands and business innovations is driving China's consumption upgrade. We have a short video. Let's take a look.
Hello, what's your name? Oh, you like my microphone? Because it's a bit fluffy like you.
Yeah.
You can say hello to them. Yeah.
Oh, come on. What have we got?
Oh, it's very cute.
You can easily spend a couple of hours here.
This is the flagship store of Top Toy, where China-themed building blocks are a major hit. But it's not just about toys. The designs reimagine Chinese rockets, local snacks, and iconic cityscapes into creative collectible sets. The secret behind their success? Creating characters that truly connect with young people.
其实我们现在可以做一个这样的一个展示来走哈，比如说我们上海比较限定的可能是油条、豆饼、大姜，对不对？然后我们可以问您现在想要吃什么吗？比如说你想要吃油条，对不对
？OK， 油条
啊，那我现在可以帮您先做一下哦。那放在油里面煎一下。您是喜欢吃酥一点的，还是说嫩一点的呢？
嫩一点的。
嫩一点的是吧？好的，稍微等一下哈。它是有一个这样的一个制作过程的。我们现在已经上了有很多代的一些上海限定，其实小笼包卖的是非常好的。
这个是小笼包，
这叫大笼包，
就这么大。
对的，我们其实还有小笼包放在里面会去蒸。
According to a report by the Shanghai Youth Research Center and social platform SoApp, more than 90% of Chinese consumers born after 1995 value emotional satisfaction. And nearly 60% say they are willing to spend specifically for it. Building emotional bonds has become the new code of consumer culture. Even time-honored retail giants like Shanghai #1 department store are now learning to crack it.
那对于潮玩的引入，也是基于我们本身这个商业体，它在上海这个地域，它一个在地的文化。中国的消费课程也慢慢的转向了一个就是我们的体验消费加情绪价值消费的一个消费转向，这个是从消费层面上的一个迭代。另外的话呢，从客群的一个年龄上来说的话呢，我们也是 Z 世代的一个人群的慢慢的它对于我们消费的贡献度越来越重要。
This century-old store has been completely reinvented. It's no longer just a place to shop. It's a curated destination for experiences and lifestyle.
商业体它肯定是发生了很大的改变，它从单纯的商品销售，肯定是要转向更多元的一个体验经济。
Cheers.
干杯。
干杯。
New ideas are originating again because there's so many cultures focusing, particularly in Nanjing Shilu. It's very cosmopolitan, and I think these are the sort of ideas. What do you think? Do you think these ideas will go global?
I believe so. I guess this is a part what people call experience, consumption, or emotional consumption. Spend money on something that makes me happy.
Honestly, I'll be quite frank with you. I have never had this in the UK, but I quite enjoy it. I like the whole immersion culture.
Yeah.
And people want to understand Chinese culture. And we have a rather outdated view of it often in the West. But I think this is updating my understanding of what it is to be a Chinese consumer.
For me, it's really brave, I mean, and also innovative to do something dramatically different from the previous practice, you know. Usually in the department store, what we can imagine is you go shopping, right? This section, okay, clothes, this section shoes, or this section shirt. You just do that. That's all about the department store. But nowadays, what? You can have fun with a cat.
I think all cultures are innovative, but I think China's peculiarly innovative at this juncture in world history because China is creating these new global companies, BYD, Huawei, Xiaomi. So with these, China's got this too high, go overseas policy. And I think that is somehow infused in the young people's mindset. The young people I meet in Shanghai, they're really world-class innovators because their entire life, since they were born in 2000, they've just been exposed to 10% growth every year. So for the last 20 years, they've experienced nothing but innovation. So I really think 2025, 2026, under the 15th five-year plan, I think there's sort of this explosion of innovation coming out of China. And I think we see it here. I think in Nanjing West, you've got all these cultures mixing. They want a coffee with a pink doll on top. They want to talk about what globalization will look like this century. And I think you need to be at the center of globalization to understand the ripples that will be going out. Shanghai's always sent ripples out into the world. And I think, you know, the ripples will start in this coffee house.
That is true, yeah. Shanghai is the leading force in terms of economic development as well as, looking to the outside world.
I think, you know, in the 1930s, people used to jump off at the Bund, get off on the boat, go to Peace Hotel, and there'd be a global conversation. I think in the 2030s, that global conversation's happening again.
Jelena, you are in Shanghai. Maybe you are familiar with those stores. What's the underlying logic, you know, for people to enjoy this experience-based, emotion-based, let's say, consumption and purchase there?
Right. I think that the Chinese new consumer trends really show how quickly innovation spreads here. You know, the young people really drive the demand for niche products, for these blind boxes, for new tea chains and local fashion brands. And this kind of kidult, they call it, in terms of the Labubu phenomenon. I think this trend really taps into nostalgia and self-expression, about reconnection with childhood emotions. And it's less about utility and more about identity, about joy, about turning consumption into a form of personal storytelling and emotional comfort. I think in general, it's really about identity, about emotion, about this surprise element, and of course, of the overall experience. I think people buy more to connect, not just to own. And this playful, gamified kind of shopping culture also shows how fast the market reacts here. You know, just how fast one idea can go from social media to a national trend in weeks. I think it's very unique for China market and can really shape global consumption trends.
Well, Labubu is going beyond the Chinese borders, Gary.
Indeed.
Dario, so the consumption, I mean, of course, before the focus of consumption, I think in China, you have a focus of also supply. I mean, so you see, it's an evolving story, I would say. The 15th five-year plan, for example, calls for building a strong domestic market that fosters both new demand and new supply. So, Gabriel, what's your understanding of new supply and new demand here?
The foundation of new supply is disposable income, discretionary income. Now, we had a drive to increase consumption previously when we lifted the minimum wage. I suspect that what is likely to happen in the 15th five-year plan is that there will also be a lift in the minimum wage. Once you've got extra money, then you can engage in discretionary expenditure. And that discretionary expenditure will be met by new supply, not necessarily the frivolous froth and bubble of our blue and the rest, but genuine products that move into an expanding middle class. Now, if we look at CIIE in Shanghai, they all came to China because they believe that there is an expanding demand from the middle class. Now, if the foreigners are believing that, and they want to export into China for that reason, then we can be certain that this is also a foundation of the 15th five-year plan.
Well, Kalinda, I mean, you are from the Development Reimagined,
Yes.
and I wonder what's your perspective on this, the evolving consumption development, both demand and supply here?
I like what he just said about the genuine products, because it gives an aspect of the transition that is happening from China consumers not looking at the quantity, but about the quality of the products. And from an African perspective, this brings me to the products from our continent that we have seen on the Chinese market that are being very much appreciated, like the Ethiopian coffee, for example, the Rwandan chili, the Kenyan avocados, and the Ghana's cocoa, just to mention a few. These products are being very much appreciated on the Chinese market because of the quality and the genuine perspective and the unique flavor that they have. So I think that's where the transition happens from the quantity to the quality of the products. Yeah. Which also gives access to the market for African small and medium enterprises as well.
Yes, we'll go into a bit of detail on that. But David, I think people would see if there's a stronger consumption here, and that would boost the growth probably further, and also more sustainable in terms of economic expansion. If you look at the numbers, for example, in September 2025, China's retail sales of consumer goods reached nearly 4.2 trillion yuan, up 3% year on year. For the first 9 months, total retail sales exceeded 36.5 trillion yuan. That's about a 4.5% increase. Of course, there's the government support, right? Remember the trading of old appliances for new ones there. To what degree you think this consumption comes from? Of course, people are saying this is still weak. There's a potential to be unleashed. How do you characterize the current consumption market in China?
Well, those numbers don't show weak consumption. And the fact we'll get in excess of 5% GDP growth doesn't show a weak economy. There's some concern about the quality of government policy. The five-year plan just announced, or the recommendations for it, I think are going to put that to rest. It's a very good five-year plan. The details show that the government does understand what the key issues are. And it's a matter of two things. One, to Darryl's point, an increase in minimum wage, an increase in job security would also help. In the major developed cities of China, there is a growing unemployment, not of the graduates that can't find jobs, but people between the age of perhaps 30 and 50, because companies are being cautious, they're cutting numbers, etc. So those things need to change. And I think they will. I think that the consumption trend is fundamentally recovering. And once confidence comes back and companies become more confident, employment will be more secure. And the thing we want is not for people to spend on stuff per se, but perhaps put money into the stock market, buy wealth management products, invest in pension plans. Those are the stabilizing features of consumption that the economy really needs. And I think there's already a trend for that.
Yeah, already a trend for that. Mr. Ledam, if you look at China, of course, when we try to figure out what's why it's subdued in terms of consumption, people point to say low birth rates, aging population. I mean that's a challenge for more than China. Many countries do face similar situation there. And the Chinese government is providing support in terms of elderly care, for example, education, etc. What can we learn from, I don't know, like other countries in terms of dealing with such an issue, or even make it into a consumption story?
Well, I think it's essential, it has been pointed out by colleagues already, that from the governmental policy side, there's sufficient attention paid to bringing trust and confidence in the future. And this relates to social security schemes, to the general environment, to the quality of the governmental policy, the security of jobs, having a perspective of a better future. So tackling unemployment issues, having a solid social security scheme, giving also good circumstances for smaller businesses to thrive. So I think from at least our perspective as, let's say, traditional Western economies, these are the things we have been trusting. Apart from then the use of packages to stimulate specific investment by households in some, for instance, they're insulating their homes or investing in solar panels and so on. You have specific schemes to unleash the consumption potential, investment potential in these domains. But globally speaking, I think it's very important to have a mid and long-term policy to support the establishment of social security schemes, of good functioning labor market, of decently paid jobs in the labor market, for instance, building a stronger pension system, building a good health insurance that covers and includes the whole population. These are also bringing stability to the labor market mobility tools you have. I think these are important ways to promote consumption and to lower a little bit the saving quote, which is traditionally very high in China, and which, of course, limits the capacity to consume.
Mm-hmm. Well, of course, related to that, Zhou Mi, is really the Chinese effort in domestically, let's say, in building a unified national market. Tell us what's that about and what are the challenges right now?
From my understanding that we are going to have a unified market, it means that we have to try to make the enterprises do business freely, easily, when they are going to place their resources in different areas of China, and they can touch different kind of factors, including the land, the capital, the people, and also the data. So we are going to support this kind of, a mechanism design and trying to guarantee that all this cooperation can be freely. And in this regard, I would say they're also considering about the balance between the domestic market and the foreign market. So it's not just taking China as separate areas. We are trying to open our market while at the same time we are providing a better space for the cooperation. So it's need a lot of collaboration, not just by the central government. They have to be coordinated by the different regions in China.
Yeah, different regions, different provincial governments, working together. As you said, it's not only about the Chinese domestic market. It's also opening up, like whether in what way it attracts investment from other parts of the world. Jelena, you are in the China market for a long time, and you are looking at obviously business opportunities for investment, for example. What do you see right now and say next 5 years?
I think Chinese investment landscape is clearly shifting toward innovation and sustainability. I think the strongest momentum is in renewable energy, in things like advanced manufacturing, AI, robotics, and life sciences. The country is really rapidly expanding in solar and battery production capacity. There's a lot of investment in green hydrogen and energy storage, and it's really becoming a global leader in EV components in the whole EV supply chain, of course. And, we see cities like Shenzhen and Suzhou that are advancing in AI and robotics, and then cities like Chengdu and Hangzhou, which more like hubs on digital health and biotechnology. And I think at the same time, China's also financial and logistic companies and sectors are integrating digital tools to scale, which at the same time is improving efficiency and resilience. And for Serbia and I think other countries, especially along the Belt and Road, I think this really creates opportunities for joint ventures that combine these technologies. And if we look towards Serbia's side in terms of investments, also in terms of market access to Europe. This really supports, Serbia really supports this type of open trade regime and really provides a strong location in terms of European supply chain.
Mm-hmm. Well, the 15th five-year plan does call for expanding high-level opening up and transforming China's domestic market into a global market. That, of course, I think in turn offers opportunities for investors, for buyers, for traders. Speak of that, as Dario mentioned, the China International Import-Expo. I will start with Kalinda. What's your observation?
Thank you for the question, and I'm excited to talk about it because Development Reimagined was at the CIIE supporting different African embassies that had pavilions, and they were showcasing different agriculture products that range from agriculture products like coffee, tea, and fruits, but also services and fashion. So it's just to say that CIIE continues to be a global entry point for markets that want to have access to the second largest consumer market, that is China. But what I want to highlight also is the presence of African countries. We had over 15 African countries, and what I want to highlight most is that the CIIE was just more than a product exhibition, because it goes way to having African SMEs that are present use this platform to meet directly with Chinese partners and distributors and investors who are ready to go and invest back in their respective countries. So I would say that with the policies that we see in place, like the zero tariff and the openness and the open market that we have been talking about, CIIE has been like a great access point.
So you are saying that CIIE is supposed to be, of course, is an import event,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
It's the first one, the only one probably in the world. China basically embrace imports of goods and services from other countries. That's why that's the event for. What you are saying is like, during this exhibition, the pavilions, people engage with each other. It goes beyond, simply sales, right?
Yes.
You are looking at for potential cooperation, for investment, for more opportunities, right? Gabriel, what's your observation there?
CIIE is the world coming to China. It's very different to what happens in America, where the world comes to Trump on command in fear. This is a voluntary thing. So people are coming because they see the market expanding. But CIIE also exposed what is going to be potentially a problem going forward in terms of a more opening up of China economy. And that is the problem of digital standards. Mm-hmm. So the developments taking place in robotics, in AI, and quantum computing, etc., are all based around Chinese developed standards. Now we know that the Americans won't accept that. So the question becomes, where is the new market for the expanding Chinese exports of digital products? It goes to the Global South. It goes to the Belt and Road Initiative countries, which includes, of course, Central Asia into Europe and so on. So these are going to be one of the key problems going forward. People came and saw all these wonderful things that were taking place, but getting them back to their own countries and developing common digital standards, that is going to be the challenge of the next 5-year plan.
Interesting point there. David, you agree?
I do agree. And while we see motor vehicles doing well, which are these days computers on wheels, and solar panels, windmills, these huge exports where China's now quite dominant, in the core of China's potential exports of real value, which lie in high-end manufacturing and robotics, that will be a challenge. But it's an interesting difference. If you look at technology in the US, and certainly what we are now terming AI, Normally it was quite closed. It was a protected asset of a company, encouraged by the country in which it was innovated. China has an open source approach, which DeepSeek certainly demonstrated. So I think that sense of let's share this, let's include everybody, they will find a solution to this. But I do agree with Daryl that right now it is a challenge, and they need to sell the concept, convince the world that join us in this technology revolution because we will make sure it adapts to your needs. And that story is still to be told.
Well, David, of course, China has shortened its inactive list, meaning more and more areas opening to overseas investment, market access in terms of that. And also we are seeing, China has made it very clear it wants to build a fair, predictable business environment where overseas enterprises will feel, treated as equal to make long-term, to be embraced, to make long-term investment. What else, China needs to do, or China should do, or can do, to make the business environment more attractive, let's say, to investors?
I think one of the mistakes in how people perceive what will attract foreign direct investment is that foreign companies are looking for something special. Because when opening up began in the 80s and 90s, there were tremendous benefits to anyone investing as a foreigner. You had 3-year tax holidays, extraordinary conditions. And that was fine to begin with. I think now, don't worry too much what the foreign companies ask for. Look more to the fact that the balance of this domestic economy, the increase of minimum wages, a more stable consumption environment where Chinese companies are doing well and Chinese consumers are spending with confidence, that will bring foreign investment. That will bring foreign companies more and more into the market. So China now knows what it's doing. It's got its own unique economy of scale. It's got its own unique political and social system. So just make that better and better, and they will come. This is the engine of the global economy now. Or it is the engine, and there are subsidiary engines that depend on China. Half the world's GDP is now sitting in Asia. China is the primary force of that. So I think the answer is as simple as that, and also as difficult as that, because it means China dealing with a lot of domestic issues that aren't simple.
Right. Zelina, you are obviously looking at investment here in China. So as David suggests, make the Chinese economy healthier, probably. With more promising in terms of its future, its prospect. Is that the case? Is that easy or that difficult?
I think we've seen a lot of efforts in this area, and there's been a removal of a lot of restrictions, like in manufacturing, and steady removal also in restrictions in services. But I think and this is really commendable. But I think what matters next is making these rules consistent nationwide. I think the direction is it's clearly a direction. There is clearly a direction toward deeper reform. But for foreign companies, this also creates not just new entry points, but more predictable business environment. And, what foreign companies value most is clarity and fairness and consistency. And China is clearly moving in that direction. Licensing and tax procedures are now faster and more digital. IP used to be such an issue 5 years or 10 years ago, and now it's becoming noticeably stronger. There's always room for improvement, of course, but business environment has significantly, I think, improved for foreign businesses. And I think that sends really a powerful signal that the playing field is somewhat leveling. And the idea of kind of treating investors as part of the family really becomes real when the policies are, as I say, predictable and really well implemented and unified across the market, and the communication is really open. So I think there's progress, and it's visible, and continued dialogue will make, of course, confidence even stronger.
Zhongmi, how do you look at, as a Chinese economist, how do you look at this, China's efforts to improve I mean, the attractiveness of the Chinese market, you want more investment. I mean, for any nation that would welcome foreign investment, right?
Yeah, it is true that investment, especially from the foreign countries, are playing a very important role in China. But I mean, the things has changed a little bit because in the past, most of this investment coming from the developed economies, they come in here because they have more advanced technology and China have labor advantages. But now everything has changed. I think many of the companies come here because China have a very sound supply chain, and we also have very open and stable policies. So it's not only from the developed economy, but also from many developing countries. They come here to invest here to benefit from the collaboration. So in this regard, I would say our policies is not just trying to make some differential policies, as David has just mentioned about, in the past what we have been doing. But in the future, we will provide the transparent, sustainable, stable policies. And also in some areas, like in Shanghai, in Hainan, we prevent some kind of special zones or free trade port to make something even more advanced or even more opener. So based on this kind of practices, I think that we can connect with the rest of the world with better supply chains, connections, and facilitate the different flows in the data in the different areas, and also benefit the people, because the people should be the best thing and the most important thing we have to take care of.
Lastly, Mr. Ledam, of course, we know that the two largest economies, China and the U.S., they are not exactly on good terms, but recently they have reached a deal. We are going to have a 1-year reprieve, say, from tariff disputes there. Hopefully, they will continue the discussion and solve the problem. We would have a stable relationship. What does that have to do with the efforts, I think, in both countries to develop the economy, to build their markets or manufacturing or consumption in different ways, I guess?
In such an environment, if you want to have global supply chains functioning, then you need free trade, as a human body needs oxygen. You cannot organize your global supply chains if you have not the access to all the resources you need and all the things you need to produce goods and services. And there's a hiccup now because of this protectionist attitude of most importantly, the US leadership, and this should be overcome. And I think that, I will add from a personal point of view that I hope that at a certain moment also consumers in the Western economy will realize that the tariffs that are imposed on goods that are imported, that these are just taxes. This is tax that is put on consumption, additional tax, and that they won't accept so easily what has been decided in the recent past. So I hope this is a temporary problem, and it's linked to the fact that the mature economies have to have some time to adapt to the new global competition, the new level playing field that is created, the re-entry of the Chinese economy into the global economy, and that we will find solution for these temporary hiccups.
Let's turn to our studio audience and take a few questions from them. If you have any questions, please raise your hand.
Hi, my question is, as a Cambodian, I've personally seen how China's growth has shaped Southeast Asia. With China now more focused on its domestic market and higher quality development, how does a smaller economy such as Cambodia better align itself and share in this new phase of cooperation?
In
my understanding, China and Cambodia, we have trying to negotiate a free trade agreement. So it's based on the win-win situation. We are not just trying to use China's rules to make the discipline. I think that's based on the both sides on what kind of areas we want to have. Like, for the agriculture of Cambodia, maybe we are able to provide a better supply logistics support and also some of the technology if you are going to export to China. And also, in the future, maybe we need more digital services from China. We can try to also use artificial intelligence abilities and trying to facilitate this kind of transactions. So for the economies, every country has its own goal. We do not want to put our experiences to others. We want to share our experiences with others. So the Belt and Road Initiative and also the bilateral platforms are providing us with more opportunities.
Hopefully more opportunities. Yeah, that lady.
Today, many Chinese brands like Mart are gaining more global popularity through social media, with celebrities also getting hooked on their product and creating what feels like free promotion. So is this phenomenon a coincidence? Is this business model replicable? And beyond that, what other strategies could help Chinese brands win the hearts of more global consumers?
Recognition of Chinese brands.
Well, China's already doing it in some very unexpected ways. I can remember even during COVID, the idea that anyone would want to develop motor vehicles in what was a globally commoditized market was ridiculous. And here we are. Not only does China dominate the electric vehicle market, most of what it exports are internal combustion engines, and they are dominant globally. So China, I think, is going to win the confidence of foreign consumers by the sheer quality of the products. Promotions sometimes are a good way to start, but getting something for free or a discount often undermines the perception of the premium of products. So I think we're going to see China going much more confidently into the global markets and simply presenting the fact that yes, it's cheaper than the local alternative, but it's high quality. And companies like BYD, Xiaomi are good examples of that.
Well, China's vast domestic market is not only the foundation of Chinese modernization, but also a source of growth for the entire world. As China continues to refine its market systems and advance high standard opening up, we have a lot more to expect out of its new 5-year plan. That brings us to the end of today's special edition of Dialogue. Many thanks to our guests and audience. I'm Xu Qinduo. See you next time.
Thank you.